There was nothing particularly noteworthy about that evening, at least not in the beginning. The event had been one of those drawn-out affairs filled with obligatory pleasantries, half-hearted chuckles, and endless speeches delivered by people far too fond of hearing themselves speak. My wife, Marlene, and I occupied our assigned seats, exchanging weary glances, sipping on wine, and faking interest in conversations that held no real meaning for either of us. It was a scene we had experienced many times before: business functions, networking mixers, the expected routines of a professional couple. Everything about it was predictable and uneventful, a space where surprises simply didn't belong. But the mood shifted the instant we stepped outside into the crisp night air. Marlene reached out, slipping her hand into mine as we walked toward the car. Her grip, though subtle, was firmer than usual. I glanced at her, sensing something was off. Her face gave nothing away: calm, composed, but curiously distant. I figured she was just worn out from the long evening. I should have sensed it was more than that. The first sign that something wasn't quite right came when I pulled my phone from my pocket. It vibrated just as we arrived at the car. A notification blinked on the screen, and I glanced at it, expecting to see a message from work or maybe a group chat. Instead, 5 unexpected words stared back at me, sending an icy jolt down my spine: "You need to know the truth." My first instinct was to dismiss it as spam, maybe some random phishing attempt. But then I noticed the sender: no name, no contact saved, just an unfamiliar number. Another message popped up beneath the first: "Check her phone." I froze. My heart, which had been steady only moments ago, now raced wildly. My breath caught as I tried to process what I was seeing. "Everything okay?" Marlene's voice broke the silence, light and seemingly unconcerned. She was already in the passenger seat, fastening her seatbelt, watching me with a casual curiosity. I forced a stiff smile and slipped the phone back into my pocket, though my fingers were tingling with anxiety. Check her phone. It sounded ridiculous. Completely baseless. Marlene and I had been a couple for a decade, married for 7 years. Never once had I questioned her loyalty. Still, something about those messages, their timing, their sudden appearance, set my nerves on edge. Sliding into the driver's seat, I gripped the wheel more tightly than necessary and started the engine. Marlene turned to study my face. "Are you sure you're okay?" she asked once more. I hesitated. That could have been the moment I told her. I could have laughed off the whole thing, shown her the texts, and let her dismiss them with a shrug. But something deep in my gut told me to keep it to myself, at least for now. "Yeah," I said, managing a half-laugh. "Just got a strange message. Probably just spam." Marlene gave a slight nod and turned her attention to her phone, scrolling idly. As we exited the parking lot, one thought kept circling in my mind: what if it wasn't spam? The drive home should have felt normal, the typical quiet ride that follows a long evening out. But this time, the silence felt heavier, stretched thin by something I couldn't quite name. It pressed in from all sides, dense and suffocating. Marlene sat beside me, the dim light from her phone screen casting a soft glow on her face. She looked as she always did, collected, unfazed, like nothing in her world was amiss. Yet something clearly was. The message still lingered in my thoughts, buzzing like a mosquito just out of reach. Check her phone. Now. I couldn't get rid of it. I stole a glance at Marlene. She was scrolling, her lips pursed in a faint frown. Maybe she was looking through emails. Maybe catching up on headlines. Or maybe. I forced my attention back to the road. "Who are you texting?" I asked, doing my best to keep my tone light and casual. "Just Tessa," she answered, not even lifting her eyes. She left earlier and wanted to make sure we had fun. That explanation seemed reasonable. They worked together and were pretty close. But then a memory surfaced uninvited. Tessa had left long before the event wrapped up. I remembered watching her wave goodbye well before dessert was even served. Marlene hadn't mentioned anything about texting her earlier. So why now? That creeping doubt began to spread, slow and relentless. I told myself I was overthinking things. It had to be a misunderstanding. A joke even? Maybe someone sent a text to the wrong number. But despite all those rationalizations, my grip tightened around the steering wheel. Marlene eventually placed her phone on her lap and turned her gaze to the window. The passing streetlights painted shifting patterns across her face. I knew it would be wrong. I knew I shouldn't do it. An urge burned in my fingertips, tempting me to grab her phone, to uncover the truth, to stop wondering. That familiar whisper echoed in my mind. "Check it now." But I resisted. At least, for the moment. I exhaled slowly and tried to speak as if everything were normal. I asked if Tessa had shared anything noteworthy. Marlene turned to me with a soft, reassuring smile. "She was just talking about the event," she said lightly. "Nothing unusual." Yet that was the moment my gut twisted with the first unmistakable pang of doubt. It was subtle but undeniable. She wasn't being honest. I could feel it deep down, though I couldn't explain why. By the time we turned into the driveway, my pulse had picked up, and my thoughts spiraled without end. Marlene leaned back in her seat with a quiet sigh. "Glad we're home," she murmured, rubbing her forehead. "That event really took it out of me." I nodded, forcing a grin, though my thoughts were stuck on something else entirely. Why had she lied? I kept looping it in my mind. If she really had been chatting with Tessa, why hadn't she mentioned it earlier? Why wait until we were already in the car? And more importantly, why act so relaxed about it, like it was nothing? She stepped out of the car without a hint of concern, grabbing her purse on the way. I followed behind, hands damp with sweat as I locked the door. Inside, the house was unchanged. Our coats hung by the entrance, and the soft aroma of Marlene's favorite vanilla candle lingered in the air. It should have felt familiar, safe. But something was off now. I paused for a moment, quietly observing her. She slipped off her heels, wincing as she did, then wandered into the kitchen to pour herself a glass of water. It all seemed perfectly normal. Nothing suspicious at all. And yet, I felt like I was standing on the brink of something big and terrifying. My hand slid into my pocket, brushing against my phone. I hesitated, thumb hovering over the screen. I wanted to answer that message, confront her, but instead, I crossed a line I never imagined I would. Glancing at Marlene's back as she scrolled through her own phone at the counter, I stepped closer. "Hey," I said casually, "mind if I borrow your phone for a sec? Mine's almost out of battery." She froze barely, but I caught it. Just a heartbeat of stillness in her shoulders before she turned around with a calm smile. "Oh," she said, her eyes flicking to the phone in my hand. "You can just use yours. It should still work." My stomach nodded. "I know, but I was going to check something real quick and it might shut off," I replied, keeping the tone light and friendly. She hesitated again, longer this time. Then, slowly, she placed her phone on the counter, but didn't remove her hand from it. The air thickened with tension, something invisible yet tangible pressing between us. Then came the laugh. It wasn't her usual one. It sounded too forced, too breezy, like she was trying to brush off the discomfort. "Since when are you this interested in my phone?" she teased, voice playfully sharp. I shrugged. "It's not a big deal. Just need to check something." She gripped the phone tighter, then added, "I'd prefer if you didn't. You know, privacy and all." Privacy. That word landed hard. We'd been married for 7 years. She'd never brought up privacy before. That was the crack, the first one. And I realized then, if I didn't get to the bottom of this, that crack would grow wider. I stared at her, watching the way her fingers wrapped protectively around the phone like it was shielding her from something. Her words repeated in my mind. "I'd prefer if you didn't. You know, privacy and all." It wasn't just what she said. It was how she said it. Too light, too dismissive, like she was brushing off something she didn't want me to see. We'd always been open, shared everything. Passwords, silly jokes, even used each other's phones without hesitation. So why was this suddenly a boundary? I swallowed hard. That word kept echoing, privacy. I chuckled awkwardly, trying to keep things light. "Come on, Marlene. It's just your phone." She gave a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Exactly. It's mine." There it was again, that subtle shift in her voice. Months ago, she wouldn't have thought twice about handing it to me. But now it was like I'd asked to see her bank account. I inched a little closer, still keeping my tone relaxed. "Okay, I get it. You don't want me going through your messages. But it's just..." She cut me off with a sigh and massaged her temples. "Leo," she said softly, "are you feeling all right? You've been acting a little off since we left." My jaw tightened. She was flipping it, making me out to be the strange one. Classic tactic. Show concern, shift the spotlight. Make me question my own reactions. But I wouldn't let her turn it around. I shrugged, brushing it off. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just tired." She watched me for a moment, searching my face like she wasn't sure if she should believe me. As if nothing had just unfolded, she calmly took a sip of her water, set her phone face down on the counter, and walked toward the bedroom. I remained rooted in place, unable to move, eyes fixed on the phone she had just abandoned. My thoughts were spinning. I faced a decision: either dismiss everything as a figment of my imagination, assume the best, and continue trusting my wife, or choose to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. A lump formed in my throat as I glanced toward the hallway. The bedroom door clicked shut behind her. She was likely changing for bed, unaware of the storm she had stirred in me. I had only moments to act. My hand reached out, trembling slightly as my heart thudded against my ribs. My fingertips hovered over the screen. The second I pressed the power button, the display lit up and a sinking feeling took over. A new message had arrived. The sender was a nameless number. And the text? Just 4 haunting words. Had he looked yet? It was as if the ground beneath me shifted. My stomach churned. A loud ringing filled my ears. Breathing became shallow and uneven. All the puzzle pieces suddenly aligned: her hesitation, the exaggerated laughter, the strained concern, and the tight grip she kept on her phone as though her life depended on it. The answer was staring me in the face, but I wasn't prepared for it. Not yet. I stood there, unmoving, staring at those words glowing on the screen as though they had physically knocked the wind out of me. Had he looked yet? There was no denying it anymore. This wasn't a misjudgment. It wasn't paranoia. Something real was going on. Something she was hiding. And someone out there was watching, waiting for my response. It felt like I had just stepped onto fragile ice, only now realizing the cracks had been forming underneath for a long time, maybe for months. My fingers hovered once more over the screen, and my heartbeat pounded like a drum in my ears. A choice lay before me. Should I open the message? Should I dive deeper? If I did, there would be no undoing it. Whatever truth lay beyond would alter everything. Suddenly, the sound of movement from the bedroom jolted me out of my thoughts. Marlene was opening drawers, shifting things around. If I waited any longer, she might come back and see me. I quickly placed the phone back on the counter, screen down exactly how she had left it. Then, with legs heavy as stone, I turned and made my way to the bedroom. There she was, standing before the mirror, unfastening her earrings. She spotted me in the reflection and smiled. "There you are," she said softly. "I thought you got lost in the kitchen." She was completely composed. Casual. Like nothing had just happened. As if she hadn't just received a message that confirmed she was keeping something from me. I swallowed hard, trying to push down the storm of feelings inside, and gave a slight nod. "Just needed a moment," I muttered. She turned to face me, her eyes briefly flickering with something unreadable. "Are you sure you're all right? You've seemed off all night." There it was again, the subtle manipulation. Trying to plant doubt in my mind. To flip the narrative. But I wouldn't fall for it this time. I eased myself down onto the edge of the bed and forced my tone to stay even. "You really don't want me to see your phone?" Her face remained neutral, but there was a small twitch in her hand, still holding one earring. She tilted her head, letting out a soft chuckle. "Leo, are we seriously having this conversation?" Her words painted me as the unreasonable one, the paranoid husband. Like I was the one guarding my phone, like it held classified secrets. I met her gaze directly, my voice steady. "I just don't understand why it's suddenly a problem." She paused for a brief moment, then sighed and walked over to sit next to me. "It's not," she said with a gentle tone. "I don't know, it's just my personal space, I guess." The way she said it felt rehearsed. Like she had gone over it in her head, planned for this exact moment. I didn't break eye contact. "You never used to care." She gave another light laugh and shook her head. "Come on, Leo. You're acting strange." She made it look so effortless, so natural that I nearly let it go. Almost convinced myself I was imagining things. But then she stretched, arms reaching up, her back arching slightly before she collapsed onto the bed with a soft sigh. That was when it happened. A faint light pulsed from the kitchen, casting a glow against the walls. Her phone had lit up again. Still lying face down on the counter. Another message had arrived. And she didn't move. Didn't even acknowledge it. Which meant she was expecting it. My thoughts were a whirlwind, and each breath felt more labored than the last. I knew I had to think carefully. I couldn't make a wrong move. So I did the one thing that went against every fiber in my body. I let it go. For now. Forcing a chuckle, I shook my head and lay back beside her. "Maybe I am acting strange," I admitted with a weak smile. Her lips curled into a soft grin as she turned toward me, resting her head on my chest. "It's been a long night," she murmured. "Let's just get some sleep." She had no idea. No clue that I was already putting together my next steps. Sleep never came. I lay there, feeling the gentle rhythm of her breathing against me, her warmth pressed to my side. But my thoughts were somewhere else, focused entirely on the phone lying in the kitchen. The unread messages were still on my mind. Something felt off, and I wasn't about to let it go unnoticed. At some point during the night, Marlene shifted positions, rolling over in bed. Her breathing was deep and steady. She was sound asleep. This was my window. I slid out of bed with care, every movement deliberate and quiet. The entire house seemed to hold its breath as I crept toward the hallway, heart pounding like a drum in my chest. Reaching the kitchen, I froze. My stomach dropped. The phone gone. I stared at the vacant counter, the exact place where it had been left. I was certain she'd placed it there earlier. Now it was empty. My throat tightened. Had she come back for it? Did she see the messages and panic? A chill ran down my spine. I pivoted to return to the bedroom but stopped short at the doorway. Her side of the bed was empty. Then I heard it, a hushed voice, muffled and low, coming from down the hallway. The bathroom door was slightly ajar, a faint light spilling through the crack. She was on a call. I moved closer, ears straining for clarity. I don't know. He's been acting strange. I think he might be catching on. My breath caught. My fists clenched instinctively at my sides. Her voice dipped even lower. No. He didn't see anything. But I should probably delete them just to be safe. My pulse surged. She was talking about those messages. She was erasing the evidence. I took another cautious step. The wooden floor betrayed me with a sharp creak. Everything went silent. Then the door swung open. Marlene stood in the doorway, her phone still in hand, eyes wide with alarm. For the first time tonight, she appeared genuinely rattled. "Leo?" she asked, her voice soft and measured, uncertainty lacing her tone. We locked eyes. The atmosphere around us shifted instantly. I knew. And now she knew that I knew. There was no returning to the way things had been. There are moments when time itself seems to pause, when the world holds its breath. This was one of those moments. Marlene remained in the doorway, her fingers clamped tightly around the phone, almost as if she thought I'd rip it from her grasp. Her breathing was shallow, her chest rising and falling rapidly. She was clearly hiding something. And she now understood I was aware of it. Neither of us spoke. We just stood there, caught in that suspended second. Then she did the one thing I feared most, she smiled. It wasn't a nervous grin, nor an apologetic one. It was calculated. "Leo," she said softly, slightly tilting her head, "what are you doing awake?" The hair on my neck stood on end. Such a simple question, but her tone was loaded. It was her attempt to regain control. I swallowed, trying to steady myself. "Couldn't sleep," I answered evenly. She gave a small nod, her lips pressed together. Her eyes flicked briefly toward the hallway behind me, subtly scanning for eavesdroppers. I exhaled slowly through my nose. I had to tread carefully. I shrugged, trying to keep things light. Just wanted to grab a glass of water. "What about you?" Her gaze flickered ever so slightly. She hadn't anticipated my question. "Oh," she responded quickly, her grip tightening around the phone. "Just needed to check something, work email." A weight settled coldly in my gut. She was too fast, too rehearsed. After all the strange behavior, the suspicious message, and her sudden need for secrecy, this wasn't just some passing suspicion. I knew now. She was keeping something from me, and I couldn't pretend otherwise any longer. I folded my arms, leaning against the doorframe with a casual posture. "Mind if I take a look?" Her body tensed. It was subtle, but I saw it. She laughed nervously, shaking her head as though I had asked something outrageous. "Leo, seriously? That's just ridiculous." My jaw tightened. "Why? What's the problem?" She exhaled hard and brushed a hand through her hair. "Because it's the middle of the night and you're acting strange. This is all just crazy." That word, crazy. Another tactic. By questioning her, I became irrational. By seeking the truth, I was the paranoid one. I should have been furious, should have demanded answers on the spot. But I didn't. Because something darker had settled inside me. This wasn't just a lie I was dealing with, this was manipulation. Gaslighting. She wasn't just hiding something trivial. This was deeper. And I needed evidence. I forced a short chuckle, rubbing the back of my neck. "You're probably right," I said lightly. "Guess I'm just overthinking things." She paused, watching me as though trying to determine whether I truly believed it. Gradually, she relaxed. Her shoulders lowered. "See?" she said with a small smile, stepping past me and walking back toward the bedroom. "We're both just tired." I nodded and followed her, but my agreement was only on the surface. Inside, a new resolve was forming. I already knew what I had to do. The strategy was clear. Marlene believed she had slipped away unscathed, that she had regained control. But what she didn't realize was that I was far from finished. The moment my head hit the pillow, the decision was made. If I wanted the truth, I'd have to outthink her. I had to access that phone. I needed to read those messages with my own eyes. But I couldn't do it while she was still awake. So I waited. I pretended to be asleep, keeping my breathing slow and steady while tuning into every subtle movement. The shifting blankets, the gentle rustle beside me. Nearly an hour passed before Marlene's body finally relaxed, her breathing falling into a soft rhythm. She had drifted off. Inch by inch, I eased out of bed, careful not to make a sound, until my feet touched the floor. My heart raced in my chest. This was my one chance. I turned toward her nightstand, spotting the phone just where I expected. I reached for it, but then she stirred slightly. I froze. Her breath caught briefly, then settled again. Still asleep. Letting out a slow, measured exhale, I picked up the phone, my fingers trembling as I pressed the power button. A lock screen appeared. Password protected. Naturally, I stared at the screen, thoughts racing. Come on, Leo, think. And then it came to me. How many times had I watched her unlock it without a second thought? My hands moved on their own, relying on muscle memory. The screen lit up. Unlocked. Relief flooded through me so fast I nearly collapsed. But the feeling didn't last long. What I found next turned my blood cold. Right there, plain as day, were messages from a contact saved only with an emoji. An empty symbol masking something far more serious. There were pieces of conversations, gaps where messages had been deleted, timestamps that didn't align. She had been texting this person during the event. While sitting beside me, then, buried under the messages, was something that left me numb. A hotel booking. I stared at it, unable to breathe. This wasn't just a hotel, it was one of those boutique places. Small, discreet. Not the type travelers picked for sightseeing. No, it was meant for secrecy, for privacy. The check-in date? Tomorrow night. The reservation? For 2. My chest tightened. My pulse thudded in my ears. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't some spur-of-the-moment mistake. It was all planned. Marlene had orchestrated every bit of it. And she had no idea that I knew. I set the phone back down with deliberate care. Quiet. Controlled. Then I sat in the darkness, staring at the ceiling as a weight settled over me. Dense and suffocating. Marlene, the woman I had built a life with, the one who kissed me goodnight only hours before, had betrayed me. And she thought I was still in the dark. But she was wrong. I stayed there, unmoving, as the light from her phone faded on the nightstand. My heart was loud in my ears, but my mind felt strangely calm. The truth sat with me, heavy but clarifying. I had the answers now. No more uncertainty. No more wondering. Marlene, my wife, my partner for the past 7 years, had chosen this path. That hotel wasn't a spontaneous mistake. It was a calculated choice. She had made her move, but she hadn't considered mine. For the first time that night, I felt peace wash over me. Not anger, not bitterness, just clarity. There was nothing left to argue about. No more shouting or questioning. I had already won the moment I saw that reservation. She didn't know I knew, and that gave me the power. I wouldn't sit here while she disappeared into the night with her lies and her boutique hotel. That wasn't going to happen. I would leave on my own terms. I rose from the edge of the bed, moving with quiet precision. I didn't need her to wake up. I didn't need her explanations. No more manipulations or attempts to twist the truth. I picked up my phone and fired off a brief message to someone I trusted completely. A friend who also happened to be a lawyer. He had once told me, half-jokingly, that if I ever needed a clean way out, he'd make it happen. Tonight, I was calling in that offer. I packed only the essentials. A few sets of clothes, my laptop, the important paperwork. I wasn't going to linger here any longer. Not another second in this house, in this false life. As dawn began to stretch through the blinds, I was ready. Marlene remained asleep, blissfully unaware. She didn't know that by the time she opened her eyes, I'd be gone. That there would be no confrontation, no fight, just silence, and a goodbye she never expected. Before leaving, I paused at the kitchen table and wrote a simple note. Not filled with anger, Not dripping in hurt. Just facts. Marlene, you kept secrets. You broke trust. And worst of all, you believed I wouldn't notice. I saw the messages. I saw the hotel booking. I know everything. But instead of standing by while you ruin what we built, I'm choosing to leave with dignity. Enjoy your hotel stay. I hope it brings you what you're looking for. Leo. I placed the note next to her phone, right where she'd see it. There'd be no escaping it. With one last glance around the home we had shared, I picked up my bag and walked out the front door. A new chapter began that moment. I didn't look back. As the miles slipped past, the burden on my chest grew lighter. I had spent far too long second-guessing my instincts, doubting what I felt deep down. But not anymore. I was finally free. And by the time Marlene woke up, I would already be gone. When she finally picked up her phone and found the note I had left behind, the truth settled in. She understood I was gone for good. That was the exact moment she truly lost me. After everything, a surprising emotion washed over me: relief. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt free. I had proved I wasn't the naive person she had believed I was. And I knew deep down I would never allow myself to be that person again.